a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Dennis Hastert. John Dennis Hastert is an American politician and convicted felon who served as the 51st Speaker of the United States House of Representatives from 1999 to 2007, representing from 1987 to 2007. He is the longest-serving Republican Speaker of the House in history, and is the highest-ranking politician in U.S. history to have served a prison sentence. Hastert grew up in rural Illinois. He graduated from Wheaton College in Wheaton, Illinois, with a degree in economics in 1964 and obtained an education degree from Northern Illinois University 3 years later. From 1965 to 1981, Hastert was a high school teacher and coach. He lost a 1980 bid for the Illinois House of Representatives, but tried again and won a seat in 1981. He was first elected to the United States House of Representatives in 1986, and re-elected every subsequent election until he retired in 2007. Hastert rose through the Republican ranks in the House, becoming Chief Deputy Whip and eventually Speaker in 1999. As Speaker of the House, Hastert supported the George W. Bush administration's foreign and domestic policies. After Democrats took control of the House in 2007 following the 2006 election, Hastert chose not to seek the position of Minority Leader, resigned his House seat, and became a lobbyist at the firm of Dickstein Shapiro. In May 2015, Hastert was indicted on federal charges of structuring bank withdrawals to evade bank reporting requirements and making false statements to federal investigators. Federal prosecutors said that the money was to compensate for and conceal deliberately unspecified misconduct by Hastert against an unnamed individual years earlier. Soon afterward, public accusations emerged that Hastert had sexually abused 3 male students when he was a teacher more than 3 decades earlier. In October 2015, Hastert entered into a plea agreement with prosecutors. Under the agreement, Hastert pleaded guilty to the structuring charge, and the charge of making false statements was dropped. In court submissions on sentencing considerations filed in April 2016, federal prosecutors made allegations of sexual misconduct against Hastert, saying that he had molested at least 4 boys as young as 14 while he worked as a high school wrestling coach decades earlier. At the sentencing hearing later that month, Hastert admitted that he had sexually abused boys whom he coached. The judge in the case referred to Hastert as a serial child molester and imposed a sentence of 15 months in prison, 2 years supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. He entered the Federal Medical Center prison in Rochester, Minnesota in 2016 and was released the following year, after 13 months in prison. Early life. Hastert was born on January 2, 1942, in Aurora, Illinois, the eldest of 3 sons of Naomi and Jack Hastert. Hastert is of Luxembourgish and Norwegian descent on his father's side, and of German descent on his mother's. Hastert grew up in a rural Illinois farming community. His middle-class family owned a farm supply business and a family farm. Hastert bagged and hauled feed and performed farm chores as a young man. Hastert also worked shifts in the family's Plainfield restaurant, the Clock Tower, where he was a fry cook. Hastert became a born-again Christian as a teenager, during his sophomore year of high school. Hastert attended Oswego High School, where he was a star wrestler and football player. Hastert briefly attended North Central College, but later transferred to Wheaton College, a Christian liberal arts college. Jim Parnelly, Hastert's roommate at North Central who transferred with him to Wheaton, was a Marine Corps Reserve member who in 1965 became the school's first student to be killed in Vietnam. Hastert continued to visit Parnelly's family each year in Michigan. Because of a wrestling injury, Hastert never served in the military. In 1964, Hastert graduated from Wheaton with a BA in economics. In 1967, he received his MS in philosophy of education from Northern Illinois University. In his first year of graduate school, Hastert spent 3 months in Japan as part of the People-to-People Student Ambassador Program. One of Hastert's fellow group members was Tony Podesta. Teaching career. Hastert was employed by Yorkville Community Unit School District 115 for 16 years, from 1965 to 1981. Hastert began working there at age 23 while still attending NUI. Throughout that time, Hastert worked as a teacher at Yorkville High School, where he also served as a football and wrestling coach. Hastert led the school's wrestling team to the 1976 state title and was later named Illinois Coach of the Year. According to federal prosecutors, during the time that he coached wrestling, Hastert sexually abused at least 4 of his students. Hastert was a Boy Scout volunteer with Explorer Post 540 of Yorkville for 17 years. During his time as a school teacher and coach, Hastert reportedly traveled with the Explorers on trips to the Grand Canyon, the Bahamas, Minnesota, and the Green River in Utah. In 1973, Hastert married a fellow teacher at the high school, Jean Carl, with whom he had 2 sons. Illinois House of Representatives. Hastert considered applying to become an assistant principal at the school, but then decided to enter politics, although at the time, he knew nothing about politics. Hastert approached Phyllis Oldenburg, a Republican operative in Kendall County, seeking advice on running for a seat in the Illinois legislature. Hastert lost a 1980 Republican primary for the Illinois House of Representatives, but showed a talent for campaigning, and after the election, volunteered for an influential state senator, John E. Grotberg. In the summer of 1981, however, State Representative Al Sherburine had become terminally ill, and Republican Party bosses selected Hastert as the successor over 2 major rivals, West Chicago lawyer Tom Johnson and Mayor Richard Verbeek of Elgin. The first round of balloting resulted in a tie, but Hastert was chosen after Grotberg interceded on Hastert's behalf. Hastert served 3 terms in the State House. He served on the Appropriations Committee. According to a 1999 Chicago Tribune profile, in the State House, Hastert quickly staked out a place on the far right of the political spectrum, once earning a place on the moral majority honor roll. Yet, he also displayed yeoman-like work habits and an ability to put aside partisanship. He gained a reputation as a deal-maker and party leader known for asking his colleagues to write their spending requests on a notepad so he could carry them into negotiating sessions, and holding early morning pre-meetings to organize talking points. One of his first moves in the House was to help block passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. The State House Speaker George Ryan appointed Hastert to a committee that worked to prevent the ERA from coming to the House floor. In the State House, Hastert opposed bills barring discrimination against gays, supported proposals to raise the driving age to 18, and voted for a mandatory seatbelt law, although he later voted to repeal it. In 1986, at the urging of Governor James R. Thompson, Hastert developed a plan to deregulate Illinois utility companies. Under the plan developed by Hastert and Republican staffers, property and gross receipts taxes that utilities paid would be eliminated and replaced with a state service tax that service industry businesses would pay. Critics of the plan said that it was too favorable to utility companies, and the proposal was not adopted. U.S. House of Representatives. Meanwhile, Hastert's political mentor Grotberg had been elected to Congress as the representative from Illinois' 14th District, but fell ill with cancer in 1986, and was unable to run for a second term. Hastert was nominated to replace him. In the general election in November 1986, he defeated Democratic candidate Mary Lou Kearns, the Kane County coroner, in a relatively close race. David Axelrod was Kearns' strategist in the race. Years later, Axelrod attributed Hastert's victory in the race in part to a sleazy, 11th-hour mailer sullying the morality of his opponent. Hastert was then re-elected in his Fox Valley-centered district several times, by wider margins, aided by his role in redistricting following the 1990 census. Following the house banking scandal, which broke in 1992, it was revealed that Hastert had bounced 44 checks during the period under investigation. A Justice Department special counsel said there was no reason to believe Hastert had committed any crime in overdrawing his accounts. As a protege of House Minority Leader Robert H. Michel, Hastert rose through the Republican ranks in the House, and in 1995, Hastert became Chief Deputy Whip. Michel appointed Hastert to the Republicans' Healthcare Task Force, where Hastert became a prominent voice in helping defeat the Clinton healthcare plan of 1993. Hastert developed a close relationship with Tom DeLay, the House Majority Whip, and was widely seen as DeLay's deputy. Hastert and DeLay first worked together in 1989 on Edward Madigan's unsuccessful race against Gingrich for Minority Whip. Hastert later managed DeLay's successful campaign to become whip. In September 1998, the two added an extra $250,000 to the Defense Department Appropriations Bill for pharmacokinetics research, which paid for an Army experiment with nicotine chewing gum manufactured by the Amurol Confections Company in Yorkville, in Hastert's district. On the House floor, Democratic Representative Peter DeFazio criticized the insertion of the provision. Hastert defended it. Hastert played good cop to DeLay's bad cop. On the eve of his elevation to Speaker, Hastert was described as deeply conservative at heart by the Associated Press. The AP reported, "He is an evangelical Christian who opposes abortion and advocates lower taxes, a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution and the death penalty, and he spearheaded the GOP's highly partisan fight against using sampling techniques to take the next census." Such groups as the National Right to Life Committee, the Christian Coalition, the Chamber of Commerce and the National Rifle Association all gave his voting record perfect scores of 100. The American Conservative Union gave him an 88. Meanwhile, the Liberal Americans for Democratic Action, the American Civil Liberties Union and labor organizations such as the AFL-CIO, and the Teamsters each gave Hastert 0 points. The League of Conservation Voters rated him a 13. Hastert criticized the Clinton administration's plans to conduct the 2000 census using sampling techniques. Hastert was a supporter of the North American Free Trade Agreement, and in 1993 voted to approve the Trade Pact. He was a gun rights supporter who voted against the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act and federal assault weapons ban. Hastert was the House Republicans' leader on anti-narcotics efforts, and was a strong supporter of the war on drugs. In this role, he campaigned to bar needle exchange programs from receiving federal funds, and criticized the Clinton administration for what he believed was insufficient funding for drug interdiction efforts. In redistricting following the 2000 census, Hastert brokered a deal with Democratic Representative William Lipinski, also from Illinois, that protected the re-election prospects of almost every Illinois incumbent. The deal easily passed the divided Illinois legislature. Election. In the aftermath of the 1998 midterm elections, where the GOP lost 5 House seats and failed to make a net gain of seats in the Senate, House Speaker Newt Gingrich of Georgia stepped down from the speakership and declined to take his seat for an 11th term. In mid-December, Representative Robert L. Livingston of Louisiana, the former chairman of the House Appropriations Committee and the Speaker-designate, stated in a dramatic surprise announcement on the House floor that he would not become Speaker, following widely publicized revelations of his extramarital affairs. Although he reportedly had no warning of Livingston's decision to step aside, Hastert began lobbying on the House floor within moments of Livingston's announcement, and by the afternoon of that day had secured the public backing of the House Republican leadership, including Gingrich, DeLay, and DeCarmi. On that day, Hastert was endorsed by about 100 Republican representatives, ranging from conservatives such as Steve Largent to moderates such as Mike Castle, for the speakership. Representative Christopher Cox of California, viewed as a potential rival, decided by evening not to challenge Hastert for the speakership. Hastert became known as the accidental speaker. Tenure and controversies. In accepting the position, Hastert broke the tradition that the new speaker delivers his first address from the speaker's chair, instead delivering his 17-minute acceptance speech from the floor. Hastert adopted a conciliatory tone and pledged to work for bipartisanship, saying that solutions to problems cannot be found in a pool of bitterness. Nevertheless, in November 2004, Hastert instituted what became known as the Hastert Rule, which was an informal, self-imposed political practice of allowing the House to vote on only those bills that were supported by the majority of its Republican members. The practice received criticism as an unduly partisan measure both at the time it was adopted and in the subsequent years. The same year, the Hastert aide who coined the phrase also stated that the structure was not workable. In any case, a number of bills subsequently passed the House without the support of a majority of the majority party in the House, as shown by a list compiled by the New York Times. In 2013, after leaving office, Hastert disowned the policy, saying that there is no Hastert rule, and that the rule was more of a principle that the majority party should follow its own policies. Congressional expert Norm Ornstein writes that Hastert blew up the House's regular order, which is a mix of rules and norms that allows debate, deliberation, and amendments in committees and on the House floor, that incorporates and does not shut out the minority, that takes bills that pass both houses to a conference committee to reconcile differences, and that allows time for members and staff to read, digest, and analyze bills. Ornstein commented that no speaker did more to relegate the regular order to the sidelines than Hastert. The House is a very partisan institution, with rules structured to give even tiny majorities enormous leverage. But Hastert took those realities to a new and more tribalized, partisan plane. Despite this shift, Hastert was widely seen as affable and low-key. He did not seek the limelight, become a regular on Sunday talk shows, or anything close to a household word or figure, or openly exhibit the kind of snarling or mean partisan demeanor that made Tom DeLay such a mark of hatred for Democrats. Although by tradition, Hastert was the leader of the House Republicans, he adopted a much lower profile in the media than conventional wisdom would suggest for a speaker. This led to accusations that he was only a figurehead for DeLay. In 2005, DeLay was indicted by a Texas grand jury on charges of campaign finance violations. DeLay stepped down as majority leader and was replaced in that post by Roy Blunt. DeLay resigned from Congress the following year. Throughout his term, Hastert was a strong supporter of the George W. Bush administration's foreign and domestic policies. Hastert was described as a Bush loyalist who worked closely with the White House to shepherd the president's agenda through Congress. The two frequently praised each other, expressed mutual respect, and had a close working relationship, even during the controversy over Representative Mark Foley, Republican of Florida. Hastert even provided Dick Cheney office space inside the House in the United States Capitol. In 2003, Hastert and Bush met privately at the White House about twice a month to discuss congressional developments. Earmarks line item projects inserted into appropriations bills at the request of individual members, and often referred to as pork barrel spending, exploded under Hastert's leadership, growing from $12 billion in 1999 to an all-time high of $29 billion in 2006. Hastert himself made earmarks a personal trademark. From 1999 to May 2005, Hastert obtained $24 million in federal earmarked grant funds to groups and institutions in Aurora, Illinois, Hastert's birthplace and his district's largest city. 106th Congress. In March 1999, soon after Hastert's elevation to the speakership, The Washington Post, in a front-page story, reported that Hastert has begun offering industry lobbyists the kind of deal they like: private audiences where, for a price, they can voice their views on what kind of agenda the 106th Congress should pursue. Hastert's style and extensive fundraising led Common Cause to critique the pay-to-play system in Congress. Hastert was known as a frequent critic of Bill Clinton, and immediately upon assuming the speakership, he played a lead role in the impeachment of the president. Nevertheless, Hastert and the Clinton administration did work together on several initiatives, including the New Markets Tax Credit Program and Plan Colombia. In 2000, Hastert announced he would support an Armenian genocide resolution. Analysts noted that at the time there was a tight congressional race in California, in which the large Armenian community might be important in favor of the Republican incumbent. The resolution, vehemently opposed by Turkey, had passed the Human Rights Subcommittee of the House and the International Relations Committee, but Hastert, although first supporting it, withdrew the resolution on the eve of the full House vote. He explained this by saying that he had received a letter from Bill Clinton asking him to withdraw it, because it would harm U.S. interests, even though there is no evidence that a payment was made. An official at the Turkish consulate is said to have claimed in one recording that was translated by Sybil Edmonds, that the price for Hastert to withdraw the Armenian genocide resolution would have been at least $500,000. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?